Pat Tillman risked and ultimately lost his life because he wanted to make a difference. When everybody else is asking, why is life so hard? Pat asked, why is life so easy? After it was announced that Pat would give up playing in the NFL to join the Rangers with his brother Kevin, everybody asked, how could he do that? Pat thought, how could I not?
Live from Los Angeles, it's Alone with Rome.
Welcome back. My guest is the mother of Pat Tillman. She is also the author of a book. It's entitled Boots on the Ground by Dusk, my tribute to Pat Tillman. I'm joined right now by Mary Tillman. Mary, it's nice to have you on the program. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Mary, I know that you're an intensely private person. I would have to think that writing a book was probably the furthest thing from your mind. What motivated you to do so?
Well, the motivation was really the fact that the public seemed to misunderstand a lot of the reasons that we've been pushing so hard to get accountability, and so I felt it was important to put everything down so people would understand, and also to put down our story so other families who are in the same position we've been in would feel maybe somewhat validated.
Now, before we talk, Mary, about what happened or what may not have happened, talk for a minute about Pat. Give us an idea. What was Pat like?
Well, Pat was a really fun, amazing person. I mean, he was always very curious and inquisitive, tenacious, physical. But as he got older, he really had a desire to be a better person and, to try to make the right decisions in his life to benefit himself and to the people around him.
Now, initially, your family was told that he died heroically in a firefight, and then several weeks later, you found out that it was a result of friendly fire. When you found out that, what did you think?
Well, when we first heard about the friendly fire, we were very saddened. It was so tragic. But, friendly fire is a part of war, and that was something we very much understood. But we heard the story of the fratricide situation, and then 3 weeks later, we went to Fort Lewis to get an official briefing of what happened. And those stories were so drastically different. Crucial information had been changed that we became very suspicious, and that's when we started asking a lot of questions.
So in your opinion, why was the military not straightforward and upfront with you and the family?
Well, I think that part of the reason was, for one, the Ranger Regiment would have been very, very grossly embarrassed, actually, because of the gross negligence with respect to the soldiers that killed Pat, and also the irresponsible orders that came from the Tactical Operations Center. But I also believe because this was the month of April 2004, the Abu Ghraib prison scandal broke the week that Pat was killed. Fallujah was in chaos. President Bush's approval rating was very weak, and the most casualties of the war had taken place at that month. So I think that all of those things were so embarrassing and tragic that the administration and the military wanted to use Pat's death to deflect public attention away from those things and to use Pat as a propaganda tool to rally support for the war in Iraq.
Mary, all of that said, how did that make you and your family feel?
Well, it's grotesque. It's grotesque that any soldier, is used in any fashion to promote the war or to deflect attention away from something. I think that Pat was a very honest person. He had a lot of integrity. He enlisted out of love of country, as do all soldiers. And I think that the disrespect that he was shown deserves to be the people who did that deserve to have it looked into and to be held accountable for it.
Have you seen that sort of accountability, and has anybody taken responsibility to the extent that you'd like to see?
No, not at all. The Army has apologized, of course. They've apologized for mistakes, missteps and errors. But the Congressional Oversight Committee has already deemed that Pat's death was a deliberate cover-up. And I don't see anyone being held accountable for that. No one has apologized for the actual deliberate deception, and they should be. They should be held accountable.
So if it's a deliberate cover-up, how high up do you think that goes?
I personally believe it went as high as Donald Rumsfeld. How much the president knew or didn't know, I'm not certain of that. But I'm pretty certain, in fact, I'm very certain that Donald Rumsfeld was aware of the cover-up and, in fact, probably initiated it.
Mary, if you had a chance to speak with him right now, what would you say to him?
Well, I would want him to come forth with the truth. But I don't believe that that's possible. I believe that, someone is going to have to uncover the truth. I don't think that he is going to be forthcoming with what happened. But he was, Pat was very much in his radar, and he indicated to the Deputy Secretary of the Army at a certain point that he felt Pat was a very special individual and that the military should keep an eye on him. So it's ludicrous to think that he was not told immediately that Pat was killed by friendly fire. So he had to have known, he had to have been aware of the cover-up.
Now, Mary, you've heard this criticism before, but the argument that why does the family keep pushing? Why did Mary Tillman need to write this book? Why do they not let it go? The military has already apologized. What more are you looking for? How do you respond to that?
Well, as I just said, they've apologized for making mistakes. This was not a mistake. This was a deliberate attempt to cover up what happened to Pat, and they went to gross measures to do that. They destroyed his uniform. They tried to convince the first they did convince the first investigative officer not to tell the medical examiner Pat was killed by friendly fire. But the medical examiner and the coroner could tell by Pat's wound pattern that he was indeed not killed by the enemy. So they refused to sign the autopsy. So the administration and the military were forced to tell us the truth. This is absolutely a heinous thing they did, and I think it's sad that the public doesn't see that. But unfortunately, the last 8 years, we have been lied to so much by this administration that people are somewhat numb to things that are really very outrageous.
Yeah, I would finally ask, was writing the book cathartic in any way, or did it just open up these wounds for you all over again?
Well, I've been working on the book for quite a while. In the last, I worked on it for a year and 3 months. But before that, I was, looking into the investigation, looking at all the reports that we received from the military. So I've sort of been ensconced in it. But I think that writing the book has been very helpful, actually. And I think that, we as a family are moving on quite well. Pat was a wonderful man. We have that to look to. But this is a responsibility, I think, we have to put forth what happened to us so other people, the public, individuals can read it and see what, the military, the government actually did. And I also have examples of, 5 other soldiers in the book whose families were lied to about the way they died. And that is just not acceptable.
Mary Tillman joining us. Mary, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.